What's up, everybody? Welcome into the newest Windy City Gridiron Radio. With you, as always, your host Robert Zaglinski, managing editor of Windy City Gridiron. And today is going to be a Bears 2018 season preview. We're going to go through all the major offensive and defensive questions. We're going to talk about expectations changing after the Khalil Mack trade. And we're going to go through the schedule game by game. To help me do all of that is Locked On Bears podcast host Lorin Cox and Pro Football Focus analyst, where you can follow him on Twitter at CoxSports1. Lorin, how are you this morning?
Hey, I'm doing well. I'm glad to be on breaking down this Bears season with you.
Yeah, it's been fun. I think we could finally. It's nice to finally get to actual football after 8 months of free agency and draft evaluations and I think sometimes over analysis. It's nice to actually get back to covering real games in 6 days.
And I think that's the benefit of the regular season with 1 week at a time. There's not enough time for over analysis in between games, so you can kind of take it at what it's actually worth instead of parsing it out too much.
Yeah, you spend a day or two on a game. I think the general formula we come to. You spend a day or two on the game afterwards, and then you jump right into the next game. It's a nice little formula, and it's not as frustrating, I think, if we're going to be honest. But anyway, let's jump right into it, Lorin. I touched on it with you in your podcast a few nights ago. Obviously, the Khalil Mack trades sent ripple effects around the league. It's a big deal when one of the league's best defensive players changes teams in the middle of his prime. I wanted to get your thoughts on how does this Mack trade change expectations for this team for you? So, what did you think about them before, and then how does adding him change your thoughts on them?
I think Mack brings the fringe playoff conversation more into a higher possibility. That I think before, for me, this was a team still on the outside looking in a pretty, not only a stacked NFC North, but just a tough NFC that's going to have a lot of really good potential double-digit win teams all pushing for that playoff spot. And so before Mack, I kind of felt like the Bears were still maybe a step outside of that. You have a lot of moving parts here and a big weakness at pass rusher that is hard to overlook, and that this was probably going to keep them pretty firmly on the outside. But all of a sudden, you add Mack to this, and to me, that's worth another win or two potentially, and that might elevate them up into this, fringe playoff range. I'm not ready to necessarily lock them in there yet until we can see how it all comes together on the field. But this is a team that I think is certainly a lot more dangerous, and with all the upside that you see across the roster, this adds some of that baseline, raising the floor a little bit with plenty of upside added as well. And that puts you in this, fringe playoff range.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that they're in the postseason yet. I'm with you. I think they might be in danger of being one of those 9 or 10 win teams that actually misses out, until we start seeing other of those other NFC powerhouses and good teams actually taking steps back. What I do think is that they have a defense that it's going to be like that. Right now, their bar is very, very it's very, very high in that it's going to be difficult for me to see them finish less than 8-8 now, because the defense is Mack is so good. He's that final finishing puzzle piece that makes everyone so much better. That just his talent translates to everybody else, and how everybody else is going to have such an easier job that it's going to be difficult for me to see them finish anything less than 500.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you get to that point, then something had to go wrong pretty significantly. And not that everything has to go right to make the playoffs, but there's a certain baseline of expectations raised here with Mack.
To Ryan Pace, Lorin, obviously this is a big aggressive trade. This is a GM that he talks about drafting and that being his main focus all the time. But if you actually look at his tenure, he's built a good majority of his core through trades. How does this Mack deal specifically, considering now that the Bears, whether it's correct or not, the Bears are going to be expected to win a Super Bowl in the next 3 or 4 years with Mac. I'm not going to say this year, just my personal expectations covering this team, but soon they're going to be expected to have championship expectations. This is the team he built by giving up all his assets. How much pressure does this put on him?
Oh, I think I think this is the type of pressure that your general manager wants to bring on. That this is the situation that you want to be in. You want to be pushing for championship contention. And obviously the key to taking that over the top is having a head coach that can, lead your team that far and can do what so many head coaches failed to do. So, I mean, in that sense, the pressure has kind of always been on. And once you hired Matt Nagy, you kind of lock in that, okay, this is supposed to be the coach that's gonna lead you to the championship. Now you have to give him the roster that can lead you to the championship. And Khalil Mack, obviously, a massive, massive part of that. But like you mentioned, without first round picks in the next 2 years, this is kind of it for your core. You have a little bit of money in free agency to maybe upgrade a starter here and there. Bobby Massey will be a free agent, and a couple other guys here and there that maybe you can bring in one veteran, but this is it. This is your young guys. This is the foundation of what will either be a championship roster or a roster that wasn't good enough. But you got your receivers in place, your tight ends in place, your quarterback, your running back, most of your offensive line, most of your defensive line, your linebacking core, and your secondary. Everyone is more or less locked in here for the short term and slightly medium term future. So this is going to be the roster that has to compete for a championship within the next 4 years. And there's not much they can do to add anything significant to it at this point.
What do you think? I know it's not really simple to pinpoint, but he's been really aggressive in locking that core in and doing so much in the past 18 months. And it was such a dramatic shift in philosophy and how everything played out. I mean, obviously the first domino was making that aggressive trade up for Mitch Trubisky, but you can even go back as far as trading up for Leonard Floyd. But that was obviously before, like, where he was still a little bit cautious. What do you think shifted for him?
I think I wonder if it's about getting a little bit more comfortable as a young general manager. When he comes in, he hires John Fox, and I don't know if it's ever been like exactly reported, but there's always been rumors and speculation about how much of that was truly Ryan Pace's decision and how much he was maybe, asked to take on a veteran head coach like that. And you wonder if maybe he comes in and John Fox kind of says, well, here's how we've always done it on my teams. And so Ryan Pace, being inexperienced, maybe says, okay, we'll see, you've won Super Bowls before. We'll kind of take your advice and do some things your way. But then as John Fox starts to dwindle a little bit and Ryan Pace maybe gets some more confidence, he can be a little bit more aggressive and feel more comfortable in what he's doing. And then now with Fox gone and he's kind of firmly in control here, going out and hiring Matt Nagy, the guy he really wanted, getting aggressive in the draft and obviously with these trades and stuff, you can really feel like he's got a full grip on this team. And there was still a lot of a transitional period, getting rid of the Phil Emery players and then sort of the, just kind of getting through the John Fox, the coach that he hired, but not now it's really Ryan Pace's team. The transition is over and he's got his full all hands on deck here to be aggressive and make the moves that he wants to make.
Talking to Lorin Cox of the Locked On Bears podcast. Make sure you subscribe to that. Lorin does great work there daily. And also for Pro Football, he's also a Pro Football Focus analyst and various other bylines, hustling every day. Follow us on Twitter at WC Gridiron. Follow me on Twitter at Robert Zaglinski. Lorin, let's jump over to Matt Nagy now. Now I think he's almost been forgotten in the shuffle for the past 3 days, just because there's been so much focus on the defensive side of the ball. But if we're going to remember, he was the first crown jewel of this Bears offseason because he's the one that's supposed to be the one that makes Mitch Trubisky good. He's supposed to be the one that takes this offense away from the run pass nightmare of 2017 that we saw at times. What should we expect from him in his first season as Bears head coach going in?
I think we're going to see a lot of fun football, and whether or not that directly leads to 10, 11 wins is a little bit of a different story, but it's going to be much, much more entertaining and enjoyable to watch. And, I think Matt Nagy offensively is going to put this team in the best position to be successful. Vic Fangio defensively can put them in the best position to be successful. And I think what's going to happen, it's going to come down to how well, I guess I sound like a coach, how well the players execute. But realistically, I mean, that's how it is. There's going to be mistakes by guys in games. And if they can overcome enough of those, then they're going to win a lot of games. So when you talk about Matt Nagy, you're going to see a lot of those spread looks. I mean, I'm sure you've talked about it before on your podcast, but, RPOs and getting Jordan Howard involved in different ways and just not seeing the same thing twice on 2 plays in a row. They'll come back to their base concepts, but I don't think you're going to see Tariq Cohen line up in the same spot very often. And, you're going to move Taylor Gabriel around and Anthony Miller. And there's just going to be a lot of movement, a lot of misdirection. And it's just going to be fun and maybe keep you on your toes a little bit when you watch this offense work.
How important? I think they've set up the dynamic where Nagy doesn't necessarily have to be as hands-on with the defense because Fangio is the guy that's maintaining that continuity. He's kind of could work.
Can you hear me? Because I cannot hear you. I don't know if it's me or you, but it looks like you left the video call. So that's good. I hear something.